Hello Internet, it is day 23 of VEDA and today's topic is the best blank I've blanked this year. I'm going to talk about the best book I've read this year. The best book I've read this year so far is In the Country, Stories by Mia Alvar. In the Country is a collection of stories during the Filipino diaspora. This book is beautifully written, first of all. I have a thing for rhythmic or lyrical prose. It just sounds nice in my head when I read it, and there's a lot of that going on in the Country. Two, the stories are really compelling and they span different ages and abilities and locations. It just brings in a lot of different cultures and it's very interesting, although the main cultural center of this book is the Filipino culture. And three, that is the biggest thing about this book that resonated with me. In the Country is the first time I've ever read a book in which the main characters are Filipino. I was talking to my sister earlier this year about how whenever I read a book, I assume that characters are white until I'm told otherwise. I didn't really realize how important diversity and representation were in books. I've said we need diverse books. But even while I was doing that, I was like, well, I've never really read a book about my people or with my cultural background. So although I was saying the words, I didn't really understand just how important it was. You would think as a brown person who's never seen herself or her culture reflected in fiction that I would understand, but I didn't until I found it. So when I read this book, I fucking cried through most of it because I was like, holy shit, this is what it's like to see yourself in a character. Of course, I'd seen myself in characters in terms of personality or mannerisms or things like that, but to see your culture and your family upbringing in a book was so impactful and powerful and moving and meaningful. And I'm gonna cry just talking about it right now. Yeah. God, I cry a lot during VEDA. But really, guys, I honestly never realized how important it was to see yourself in books. Because I don't. Fuck, I'm crying again. Great. This is... Yay. After I read this book, I texted or emailed my mom and was like, I'm reading this book about Filipinos during martial law and other times. I'm so compelled. I know you were alive and nearby during this time. What can you tell me about your experience? And so I went home and I had lunch at a Filipino restaurant with my mom, and we talked about how she lived down the street from Malacanang Palace, which is the president's home, Ferdinand Marcos, who declared martial law. And she was like, I was 17 years old and I didn't really pay attention. And then she told me about her ex-boyfriend who was an activist and was jailed for what he wrote about the government. And it was just all of this insane stuff that I didn't really know that my mother and people she knew had gone through. This book is also meaningful to me because it brought about that deeper connection and these shared stories between me and my family. So, In the Country, Stories by Mia Alvar, the second thing that's made me cry during VEDA. And that's all I've got for you today. I love your faces and I will see you guys tomorrow.